Hi, I'm Jamie. This is Dead Dodge Garage, and this is my 1964 W200 Power Wagon. It's been sitting here abandoned and sad for quite a while. Today, with some help from my friend David and of course Alan, we're going to try and fix that. Step one is dragging it out of the hole it's currently stuck in, and we're going to do that with the Ford Expedition. This truck has gallons of character, from the skinny knobby tires to the ride height, the manual hubs, and the fact that it's bashed to hell. I actually kicked out a bunch of the dents on this thing long ago. This door was way worse, and so is the roof. Oh, that hitch is barely attached. Did I put it in gear? Not in gear, but I think the parking brake works. Oh, no, don't go down there. Nice. Easy. That's really cool looking, actually. Sun's out, and it's shining on all of us, including this glorious truck. I do think it's gonna need tires, unfortunately. I'll just get this out of the way now and remind you that this truck is an absolute pile of garbage. It was rebuilt out of Bondo decades ago, and then it rotted on a farm for quite a while. Yeah, the outside's pretty bad, but the inside is somehow worse. I bashed this roof brutally with a hammer and a wood block trying to straighten it out, and it honestly is a whole lot better than when I started. This thing's been broken and halfway scabbed back together with a welder. The windshield doesn't even really fit in the windshield opening anymore. Admire the part of the gasket I rebuilt out of Gorilla Tape. That's holding up great. That action's pretty good. The big problem with this thing is under the hood. This truck had actually broken a ring years ago, and eventually it seized itself. The chunks of the ring wore themselves on top of each other. The piston is impacted in that spot. It's really bad, and when I tried to fix it and get those rings out, things went worse, and that's pretty much when I gave up on this project. Oh good, the cavalry arrives. My friend David helped me find, buy, and secure this truck, and every time he's here we work on it, which I don't think he likes, so decided to drag it out again since he's in town. This should be fun. Anyway, as I was saying, the real problem is the engine. Let's take a look under the hood, which is a little harder than it sounds. That usually works in one try. There you go. Yep, it's a poly, or most of one. It's not looking very good. So today, we're gonna rip this thing out of here. Hopefully with a tractor if it wants to work. But we'll see. That looks heavy.
Cable saved.
Yeah, nice work on that. Alan's gonna chip away at this while we go pour concrete for some reason, and then we'll be back.
Okay, I think I've done everything I can do on top. That means I gotta crawl underneath this thing. A few more mounts back here. Slave cylinder. Support transmission. We're getting close here. Don't mind the hole. Or the other hole. That bolt sucks. Really hard to get to under here. And I think we're all ready to pull her out. I think I got everything ready. Just waiting on the tractor guy.
We leave him alone for an hour and a half. Wow. Did you know that it's cold? And I ain't got no glow plugs. I might need a jump box. Time today. Woo! Yee, doggy. Hey, OSHA, is this safe? You're gonna want to keep back for this one. What's the worst that could happen? It explodes?
I've seen some videos. It's pretty bad.
So anyway, while we were gone, Alan fully unhooked the engine, pulled the radiator, and it's ready to come out. So we've got the tractor, and we're gonna do that carefully. Don't mind the hydraulic leak. Don't ask me why I turned the camera off, but just jerked the tractor back 6 inches and the entire engine popped out. That was way too easy. Hey, what's all that fluid? Never mind, I don't want to talk about it. Don't look at that green stuff coming out. There you go. Oh, that's getting really bad. Call the EPA. We're gonna clean that. Coming up. Hey, we should have pulled that fan. Oh yeah, buddy.
Hold on. Always got to put the phone down.
What a horrible mess. Drained all the oil, but didn't pull the filter. So Dave's trying to get a pile of those oil absorbing mats right now. You made that way too easy on me.
Seems as though we developed a leak around the oil filter. Whoops.
Bye-bye. There you go.
OSHA approved.
Nothing to see here, folks. Just a little equipment maintenance. Stay. Well, now we're in the shed, kinda. This happens to be right where I put together my shed-built 360 that's in the Demon. So we're gonna overhaul this poly the cheapest, quickest, and dirtiest way possible, right here. I don't wanna talk about the fact that I accidentally slammed this thing into the ground because the chain was too long and I thought I was gonna run into the roof. Anyway, I slightly modified the concrete with the flywheel and slightly bent the oil pickup. Hopefully it's still good because that's a special swept line part. Well, I hope it comes off. We kind of need it off.
It'll come off eventually.
Anyway, we're stripping this thing down. We're going to be cleaning all kinds of components, giving it a quick hone, sanding the deck surfaces by hand, cleaning up all this nightmare in here. Need to get the bell housing off. That was a cool sound. This is the big crazy cast iron bell housing used on these new process truck transmissions in the 60s. It actually wraps around the flywheel, so it's impossible to remove this without lifting it up. You have to take it out of the trucks on the engine, which I learned the hard way many years ago. Not light. Not at all. Oh, dude. Come on. Come on. This is a fun dance. Okay. There you go. Well, sometimes good.
It only grinds half the time.
All right, that's not great. That one might need a cleaning. So it's always good when you could just remove the pressure plate, which looks like that, and the clutch disc stays behind on the flywheel. I'm gonna have to break that free, and it's not really worth reusing, but we're gonna have to. They've done studies, 60% of the time, works every time. That's not good. So I guess I'm ordering a clutch.
It's gonna be one of those fancy drag clutches, right?
Yep. Ooh. Might have a used one. This thing's gonna need a serious cleaning, but I'm trying to get some of the big chunks off real quick here. Oh yeah. How much rainwater was supposed to be in this engine? Just wondering. Particularly like the tree parts. That is so bad. This one might still be good. Ooh, Napa Premium.
Don't drop your phone.
Yep.
Ooh. Most of the lifters move. No, I take that back. Some of the lifters move. After all that, we've got a horrible, disgusting, probably seized again 318 poly bottom end on an engine stand. So now we're gonna break this thing down. Everything's gonna get cleaned, scraped, decrutted, etc. We're gonna go ahead and replace the broken water pump. And probably a bunch more stuff too. Hey, that bottom pulley's bent. I didn't do that. Recall, if you will, we popped a couple rods off the crank on this thing in the truck. We've got the number 8 all the way out. The number 5 is loose and shoved up to the top of the deck. And I did hone above number 7 here. I thought that one was loose too. Anyway, we had this crank turning 360 degrees, no problem. But that was like a year ago, and it's been a little damp since then. We're gonna spray everything around here with some penetrant, and hopefully the stuck lifters will move. I don't know what this thing's coated in. Obviously some of it's oil, but I think the rest is like clay or something. It's red, and it's really gnarly. Good Lord. I knew this timing cover was not happy. We've been seeing this stuff rain inside the engine block, which means there's like no seal in here anymore. That's another level there. That ain't good, brother. What is that? It's like a science experiment. I'm gonna go ahead and go all Arthur Brown on these lifter bores, and then hopefully these things come free. But we'll see. Yeah, these all moved perfectly freely a year ago. That's my bad. What's the dipstick?
I'm right here.
I gotta tell you, I had higher hopes for this.
Me too.
Hey, some of them are going. Perhaps more fire. Done. If you somehow don't know, this poly engine is the ancestor of the LA, or light A, that we see in all of our A bodies and B bodies and things like that. They took a whole bunch of beef out of this block when they restructured it into the LA. The two are very, very similar, but they lighten the load everywhere they could. And here's one of those places. This is perfectly straight on a poly, but on an LA, there's a big dip here because they removed a ton of extra material. Because I'd already honed this thing above a couple pistons to help get it moving before, all of those spots have rusted, and the rings aren't going to want to go by them. It's probably part of why this thing's not turning as well. So we're spraying all the cylinders, but I'm going to use a dingle ball hone to try and clean up that rust and give the rings a nice path to come through. I will not be doing the final hone with the dingle ball. We'll use a real stone hone to try and get a nice true surface. But this is great for quick cleanup. At least in cylinders you can get it into. This is always a job. It always involves yucky varnish buildup on the bottom of the lifters where they don't go into the bores during their normal operation. But the extra bit of rust makes it a little harder. There you go. This is our current technique. Tiny plastic pry bar, extra set of hands. They come right out. Usually. Yikes.
Yeah.
That might be the worst one. Okay.
If we didn't have to save that cam, it would be different.
Well, yeah, we just pry them, but you don't have much choice. Polycams are special.
It's got a certain smell to it.
You like that?
Mm-hmm.
Might be lunchtime. The rust spot's one thing, but there's a bunch of pox on it like you got hit. Anyway, one forever later, we finally got all the lifters out. We saved the best for last. I think this one lifter took, what, 20 minutes? It's gonna need some cleaning. I'm not 100% sure that was rotating when it was still in operation. No, it's fine. Ugh, it's not good. Well, we're getting all the pistons out now. I think we're down to 3 stuck in the block. And we're noticing every single one that comes out, the top ring is broken. Notice the shiny spots there at the ends and the horrible burned blackness where combustion was just going right past them. So that's not great. Of course, we've got a bunch of moisture as well, and many of these second rings are seized in the pistons. I might have to reuse some of these, maybe. Oh, there you go.
New.
It's fixed. Yeah, there's a little bit of wear in that one, but I wouldn't worry.
I'm not worried.
Also, check this out. Important point. Notice the amount of oil that is still inside every one of these bearings. I just want all you guys who freak out about pre-oiling things to remember that. The oil film stays around for a very long time. This engine hasn't run in decades. All right, there's broken rings, and then there's this. That's 5 different pieces. If this thing had run, I'm thinking it might not have run so good. Alan did all the hard work. I basically haven't done. They're more of guidelines than actual rules. There you go. Oh no, more pressy.
Oh, less junk.
Well,
Is there anything still left in there? I thought it all fell on me a year ago.
most of it did. Dude, do you remember turning the crank back and forth and it was just raining aluminum dust? So cool. Look at this. Dude, remember all those people that said, oh, maybe the chain's seized? It actually is now. Kinda. Oh, well, I fixed it. Never mind. But look at how floppy that is. That's really impressive. Oh, maybe a little heat on that one.
Hit it with a pry bar.
Ooh, good idea. Ooh, here. I know what we'll do. We'll do tag team kind of deal. My pry bar is a little longer than ours, but it's not the size of the ship. There you go. Oh, yeah. Excellent. I don't think we'll be reusing that. That's not gonna work. Compact it is. Just full send them.
Just do the wrong thing the wrong way.
Don't do this. Don't do it. Before you actually get it off, we should try it.
Yeah.
I took a lunch break to eat 3 bites of a reheated chicken sandwich and came back to find the crank on the ground. Very nice. This, of course, is a forged crankshaft. You can tell that by the way it kind of looks like garbage in places. And this one's in pretty decent shape, except for the journals that we removed rods from and left that way for a year. So I'm going to have to lightly sand those up, just generally polish this thing, clean it, and make sure it's good to throw back in. I think I even have new bearings. How's that going? Well, it moved.
Yeah, it's mostly out. It's just mostly out, isn't out.
I suppose I could probably pull the cam then.
Yeah, cam's free.
Oh. I need a longer bolt. I've got tons and tons of LA cams, but poly cams are different, and we have to reuse this one, which is unfortunate because it's totally covered in rust and other horrible things. If I hadn't left this thing exposed to the elements for a year, it probably wouldn't look like this. I also could have probably squirted some oil on there, but I didn't think of it. In case you're curious why the camshaft is different, even though so much of the engine is the same, at least in the bottom end, that's because the valve and pushrod order is different. I think on these it's intake, exhaust, intake, exhaust, intake, exhaust, intake, exhaust, looking at the pushrod layout, because this would be the exhaust pushrod. I could look at a head, you know, I do have those. But anyway, the point is the valve order is different. On the LA, it's exhaust, intake, intake, exhaust. So now we've got a bare block. It is a horrible, awful mess, so we're going to work on cleaning it up and get it ready to reassemble. In case you were wondering, this is gross. Wow! It's just full of that stuff. Yeah, so we're pulling the core plugs, or freeze plugs, or frost plugs, or whatever the hell you want to call them. I'm very afraid that it will not be obvious through video how absolutely disgusting this engine is. But I promise you, it is. Grease, grime, muck, mud, tree parts, rust, half a gallon of PB blaster now. It's just covered in all sorts of horrors. Horrors. You know? Is this just packed full of mud? Like, entirely full of mud? Dude. Yeah, it's a partial fill block. Dude. That's quite something, actually. Yeah, so if this thing had actually run, that probably wouldn't have been good. I'm impressed. Got the last plug out. It was one of those rubber expansion plugs, which I've seen before, but I've never seen one that looks like this. It's just like a giant ball of rubber. This thing actually doesn't look too bad down here. It's not totally rusty, just greasy. Here's the old rear main seal. It's a rope type, and it kind of came out in a few pieces. It's still hanging on, though. I don't even think it leaked too bad. This might just be the most disgusting engine I've ever had my hands on and in, and that's saying something. But we're getting places. We're scrubbing and chipping and vacuuming and beating with hammers and scrubbing more. You can actually see some nice old paint there. We did lose Alan. Something about it being 5 o'clock somewhere. I don't know. I think he ripped out of here sideways in his expedition and went home. But we do thank him for his service. This block is going to go through a handful of cleaning stages. We got to get all this nasty stuff out, all the little bits. Need to blast the oil galleys out. Need to get the rest of this horrible, disgusting garbage out of the cooling passages if I can. No guarantees on that, but it may actually get washed at some point. Right now, though, I'm going to see if I can get a nice hone on these cylinders. That's going to create a horrible metallic goo mess, and we'll want to clean that off too. Then I'll start on the decks. To hone the cylinders, I'm going to be using a stone hone. As mentioned, I will use a dingle ball like that to knock down horrible chunks of rust and give the cylinders a quick clean, but we need to make sure these are as true as they can be, and the straight stones on the stone hone help to accomplish that. I believe these are 180 grit stones. I might like to finish it a little bit finer than that, but this actually may be about right for cast iron rings, which is probably what we've got for this thing. That sure looks like a standard iron ring to me, so yeah, this should be about right. There are multiple types of stone hone out there in the world. This is a pretty nice Lyle unit. I just bought these replacement stones for it because I kind of ruined one of the older ones. Essentially what you do is you get your stone hone in here. You carefully adjust it to roughly tight in the bore, and don't do that because you've only got one hand. Lubricate that with something, stick your drill on it, and then run it clockwise. And as you do, you're going to go up and down. You can vary the speed that you do that at, and you can vary the speed of the drill. But you're looking for a nice cross-thatch pattern as you do it. Something like a 30-degree angle between your lines. Now this can take a little while. You're going to be watching the cylinder as you do it, cleaning it repeatedly, looking for little patches where it isn't hitting, and just trying to get a nice even finish across the entire cylinder. Here's after about 30 seconds of honing or so. Note the shadow up here at the top. This is where the rings are forced outward by combustion and where they wear the cylinder the most. It's also how you end up having this ridge here. So we're going to keep going. It'll essentially be removing material down here until the stones reach the depth of that. We probably won't necessarily remove the entire ridge, but it should get pretty close. Just about there now. Just about half of that shadow is gone. There probably will be a little bit of it left when we're done. There you go. We're going to call that one good. Again, there is still a little shadow there under the ridge, but in general, it's looking much, much nicer. Now, we are a little bit concerned about this gigantic ridge. If a ring goes crashing into that, it could break, and that would be really bad. So now that this is done, we'll probably take the ridge reamer and knock that down a little bit. It'll also make installing the pistons easier, probably. Speaking of pistons, these are our good used ones with shiny new rings on them. This is going to be so much better than what we had. I'm quite excited. I actually got this set from Nick over at Lambinsky's Garage, and I thank him very much for that. Here is one of those new used pistons set in this number 2 bore, which is the one I started honing. Here's what the skirt fits like. Not bad. Obviously, this is not a precise measurement by any means, but it seems pretty close. Compare that to that 273 I started honing like a couple months ago that ended up being a serious hot dog in a hallway situation, and we still never got to the bottom of the rust pits. This is so much better. In fact, there's pretty much no rust in these bores at all, which is great. Given the absolutely horrible muck and corrosion found in other places, I'm pretty surprised by that. When you're honing, do try really hard not to crash the stones into the main webbing below the bore. That's how I ruined my last ones, and how I'm gonna ruin these. Hey, remind me to get my phone fixed someday. This camera's still ruined. Anyway, I would never ever claim to be an expert at this. I've done it a lot, but I'll demonstrate my technique briefly. I've got the drill on low speed, and you can kind of see the up and down movement there. Again, you can vary the up and down speed to get your cross-hatch pattern adjusted. And periodically, you want to hit it with some kind of spray lubricant. You can use gasoline. I'm using brake clean right now, but I've also used WD-40, PB Blaster, Freol, oil. There are a lot of options. So that's what you don't want to do. So I'm setting the hone with it up here at the top. Because this is above the ridge, the rings have never gotten here, there's no wear. So this area should still be true and round in the correct dimension. And down at the very bottom, where the rings do not travel, the bore should also be in very nice shape. So essentially what you're doing with your hone is averaging between those two and trying to make everything in the middle match and be concentric again. That speed should be about right for the crosshatch. That one looks good. You always want to give this a wipe so you can see what's going on. Often what'll happen if you do have little imperfections, especially rust pits, the material you're grinding off and the little bits of your hone that come off during the process fill those imperfections in, and then you can't see them. Here's where we're at on the second one. Obviously that can go a little bit more. I want to get that dark area about half as big as it is now, or even less. You can see there actually is a little hint of rust there under the ridge. Also, that pattern is a little flat, so I may need to either slow down the drill or speed up the up and down movement. Passenger bank is honed. I might give that one a little bit more attention. That's kind of a special case there. We're gonna ignore that for now and start cleaning the decks. Currently using a carbide scraper. I do have some other tools to do this. Good old razor blade works fine. I've never been a big fan of those rotary cleaning pad scuffy things. You can do some pretty serious damage with those if you park them in one place, at least on aluminum anyway. And I've learned that the hard way, so I prefer to do something like this. I may well clean this up with a little bit of sandpaper. I was really concerned about rust, but I don't know, whatever's on there seems to be coming off pretty well. More than a couple little bits of head gasket left behind over here. It's really nasty fiber stuff. All right, good news, bad news. The good news is this engine is out, it's apart, it's on a stand, it's much, much cleaner, it's half honed, both the decks are cleaned, the old crappy core plugs are out, it's well on its way to being prepped for a rebuild, and I have almost everything I need to do that right around here somewhere. It might even end up kinda sorta turquoise again. Oh, anyway, the bad news, it's very cold. And enthusiasm for this project in general is greatly diminished at this point, so we're just gonna go ahead and call it for now. This is a huge step forward for this truck. It might actually live again sometime soon, and that's great, but not tonight. Tonight, I think it's time to like relax and drink crusty cold adult beverages or something. What did we learn?
It's cold.
Yes.
We learned not to keep engines out in the open.
Like in the rain in Grays Harbor?
Yeah, you know, like in salt air.
For years.
It's a bad idea.
It's a good lesson. Stay tuned though, because I promise it won't be another year till we're working on this thing again. In fact, I'd really like to hear it running this winter, but we'll see. Knowing David's terrible luck, I won't touch it again at all until he comes back. I could clean some more stuff. We'll get there. Soup. Anyway, hopefully you enjoyed that. I know I did. In any case, as ever, thanks for watching. And remember, assembly is not necessarily the reverse of disassembly. Seriously, just a horrible mess.